Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our channel. Today I want to talk about experiencing fear and angst, their psychoanalytical meaning and interpretation to the theoretical reception of contemporary fictionary films. Before the beginning, I have to talk about films a lot, but there's someone in me, I still can't quite identify him, who still hopes never to have done it. Now I will start with a statement about genres. I will mix genres. I repeat, genres are to be mixed. This is an opinion, this is a statement of Jacke Derrida's philosophy, describes more than one fact. What does it mean? We will see it later. Now, at first, I want to talk about genres. There is a law of genres, and the question is, what is the relationship between a genre of a contemporary, fictionary film and form of fear, angst? The getting ground hypothesis is that fear in films is motivated by very different structures. Different genres and narrative elements of and in films are narrowly correlated with the different forms of fear as presented in the theories. My position is simple. I want to count out the following 6 important correlations. First, anancastic fear, or better, compulsive fear, comedy. Second, hysterical fear, musical and dance. Third, traumatic fear, thriller. Fourth, paranoid fear, action and thrill science fiction. Fifth, schizoid fear, horror and mindgame movies, fantasy. 6. Depressive fear, apocalyptical and melodrama. It's fine, it's easy, and it's too easy. As soon as the word genre is sounded, as soon as it heard, as soon as one attempts to conceive it, a limit is drawn, said Derrida in Law of Genre 1980. And when this limit of genre is established, the biological genre and the gender trouble are not far behind. That's a problem. There is no genre. Derrida, who would have us believe that we too, for example, would form a genre or belong to one? We must not respect a norm. Suppose for a moment it were impossible not to mix genres. What if there were lodged within the heart of law itself a law of impurity or principal contamination? Thus, as soon as genres announces itself, one must respect the norm. One must not cross a line of demarcation. One must not risk impurity, anomaly or monstrosity. Fear and genre. Is fear a result of genres? Now it is impossible to talk about all 6 genres in this time here. I will mix genres, and the contemporary fictionary films will mix genres. In our time in cinema, there is no impurity anymore. In this moment, I will mix the relations too. As far as psychoanalytical models are taken into account, my focus will lie on Fritz Riemann's German standard work, Grundformen der Angst. It will function as a basic text to introduce and discuss 4 basic types of personality: schizoid, depressive, compulsive, hysteric, with regard to their relation forms of fear. The English title of the book is Anxiety, using depth psychology to find a balance in your life. This book is working like a counselor. I don't want to work with Jacques Lacan's theory, the most popular psychoanalytical theory and film theory, because this is a conjugal model, paternal and phallologocentric. It's the father, the spouse, and the boss, the master of the house, who lays down the laws of psychoanalytical themes. Even a perfect legal construction can lead to such a sad result. In this case it is perfect, but it doesn't work. That's my opinion about Lacan's approach. Now we have to go on. One film and many genres, or one genre and many films. I will take in only one movie. It contains several genres. I will mix genres in selecting films for my audience. I've never chosen them with reference to genres. Today I've chosen a sequence from the TV series Sherlock. Sherlock is a British-American crime film television series based on the Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes detective stories. Created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, these films were signed by 3 authors. The sign of 3 is more than a genre movie. There are auteurs, in French auteurs. The problem of cinematic genres related no doubt to a more complicated question between genre criticism and auteur criticism. The personal signature of an auteur is stronger than any genre relations. If you see one episode from Sherlock, you will not only see a genre movie, but a film written by known auteurs. Most known is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and his books. And there's more than one genre relation, because Sherlock is a crime film, a crime comedy, and sometimes a crime thriller. And it is not a detective movie. We often say it's a show about a detective, not a detective show, said Mark Gatiss in an interview. This series has a solitary position in TV history. It is extremely innovative. Critical reception has been highly positive, with many reviews praising the quality of the writing, performance and direction. Now I will start with the analysis of the basic forms with a little help from Fritz Riemann's book, Basic Form of Anxiety, first published in 1961. We can see 3 basic forms of fear in Sherlock. First, schizoid fear, mindgame movie. Second, compulsive fear, comedy. And third and last, traumatic fear, thriller. I will show you all 3 relations. I will start first, schizoid fear, mindgame movies. The main character in Sherlock is a person who represents this form. In the pilot episode he explains, "I'm not a psychopath, Anderson. I'm a high-functioning sociopath." Do you research? I will research, and I found this description by Riemann in the chapter Fear of Commitment. Full of mistrust and acting from a deep-seated insecurity, as we will see, is a primary, the cause, and also secondly the result of diminished human contact. Schizoid persons endeavor to develop the functions and skills with C as a promising to help orient themselves better in the world. The perception of senses, intellectual insight, consciousness and reason. As anything to do with emotions and feelings cause them anxiety. The strive for pure knowledge detached from emotions, which promises to deliver results on which they can depend. Here one can understand why schizoid personalities prefer to devote themselves to exact science, as these offer them this security and detachment from subjective experiencing. While Sherlock can remember hundreds of facts in his incredible mind palace and can spot things in seconds that the rest of us would miss, he, at the same time, has no idea how to handle people. He is a lonely thinker, not a part of society. He believes in the Enlightenment. He is a part of the legacy of the Enlightenment. He leads a serious scientific discourse on a subject that has been observed in reality, how criminals work. And his fear of commitment has to do with his fear of the emotions by his own. It is better to have no emotions. It is better to have no much relationships. There is only the brotherhood to Dr. Watson. The mean and ever of Sherlock will be toward being as independent and self-sufficient as possible. Riemann explains, the impression such a person makes on his or her environment is one of aloofness, distance, coolness, of being unapproachable and even cold. Sherlock is the hero of the TV series. He is an idol and an idol. The spectator's identification with Sherlock is part of the visual pleasure. He is like a brain Superman in the world of criminology. His fear of commitment is a very important subject in the entire narration. His mind games, and we follow him in this case, are a result of schizoid personality. Now we come to the second form, compulsive fear, comedy. Riemann explains compulsive fear as fear of changes. David Bowie has sung in 1973, changes, turn and face the strange. A strange move or a strange stage in life is the end, the death. The fear of changes is a fear of death. Riemann wrote, the most general result will be that such a person has the tendency to leave everything as it is. Changes of any kind remind them of transience, which they are trying to avoid at all costs. Over 100 years there is Sherlock Holmes, a long tradition. The canon of Sherlock Holmes consists of 56 short stories and 4 novels written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The most of them have the same structure. To read a Sherlock Holmes story is a ceremony to commit. This is funny. This is a scheme that always runs the same as it ever was, no change. No development, and in the end, no death. The ritual to see one episode after another is one power of television. The same stars, the same characters, the same music, the same time, the same tone, and so on. We can thus recognize the fundamental problem of compulsive personalities in their super-violent need for security, explains Riemann. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson working on the social security. Each episode shows us their fight, their true victory over death, and over every threat to our humanity. The message is, you are safe. It is a part of success of the characters of Sherlock Holmes that he participates in both this schizoid person with ideas of a super scientist and a strong, disciplined, compulsive character. The compulsive person has difficulty accepting that in the realm of the living there is no absolutism. There is no immutable principles. That life can be determined predictably. Sherlock has rules and habits, and he loves his habits. He never loses control. The ceremony is an important point in his whole life and in the reception of his life too. Life should be a never-ending story. Now we come to the last point, traumatic fear thriller. This scheme of fear is no chapter in the book of Riemann. Walter Benjamin wrote about it and called it shock. Shock in German. Trauma is often the result of an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds one's ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved with that experience. A traumatic event involves one experience or repeating events with a sense of being overwhelmed that can be delayed by weeks, years, or even decades as a person struggles to cope with the immediate circumstances, eventually leading to a serious long-term negative consequences. The famous story by Doyle, The Hound of the Baskervilles, would become The Hounds of Baskervilles in the TV series in 2012. I will talk about one sequence of this episode at last. In this sequence, Sherlock is truly scared. It is the fear of not knowing what is real. He had seen a giant hound at the Hollow, and that is impossible. At a local inn, Sherlock is visibly shaken and confesses he saw the hound. John Watson tries calming him, suggesting his imagining things. Sherlock reacts with anger, denying there is anything wrong with him. If the hound does indeed exist, then everything he ever believed to be true and untrue is suddenly called into question. What he saw couldn't be explained away by logic or science, and Sherlock is unable to function in such a world. At the end, Sherlock deduces a chemical weapon designed to trigger violent hallucinations was responsible. Now I have mixed genres. Watson is a part of comedy in the whole series. What Sherlock has seen is out of rules and habits. It is a traumatic situation, but through the work of dedication is incredible integrated. The hound is a ghost. It's a meeting with the others, with something outside, an old romantic and anxiety vision, a meeting with death. But according to Jacke Derrida, there is no meeting with others without fear. Thank you and good luck.